And on this day, OTT was no longer a meme. Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're going to be taking a look at G-BT12 in this set breakdown. Yet another really good set by Bushiroad. Applause to them. G-BT11 was honestly, in my opinion, a really good set that made a lot of things fresh in the game. And I think this set carries on in that trend. There's a lot of new decks. It doesn't really change so much how the game is played, obviously, but it adds in a lot more into the mix and also adds to the already big list of competitively viable decks. So we've got 6 clans to look at. It's going to be in the order of my personal preference from least to most as always, but first we're going to take a look at the Cray Elemental. So this is Air Elemental Blue Rune, and the skill is when your opponent shuffles their deck due to the effect of their card, until end of turn this unit gets plus 5k and resist. Interesting card, I guess, against any new Nectar deck. This is kind of strong against any Paladin deck. Maybe not golds, because they tend to not shuffle, but just kind of bot deck things. So yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. I don't think it's very good right now, but with a lot of these Cray Elementals, like some of them, like on the time that I made their, like talked about them in their respective sets, they were like nothing, and now suddenly they're pretty good because of some kind of meta development. So, you know, this might see the light of day at some point as well, but for now it's not that special. So my least excited for clan, big surprise, is Neo Nectar. They got a couple triple rares. One is a Stride, which is Midsummer Flower Princess Lieta. She has an act once per turn, Canvas 1 and Persona Flip. You choose up to 1 card from your hand, put it into your soul, and this unit gets the card names of all cards in your soul, and then you search your deck for up to the number of face-up cards in your G-Zone plus 1 of cards with the same card name as this unit. Call them to separate rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. If the number of face-up cards in your G-Zone is 2 or more, you choose 3 of your units and they get plus 3k until end of turn. So how this works, because it's kind of a confusing wording, is that you search, the number that you search is like, let's say you have 3 face-up units, so you'll search 4, that's the easy part. But then you can only search for cards that have the same name as her, and her name is the same as all cards in the soul. So basically you just choose whatever is in your soul and you copy them, but onto rearguard circles. And yeah. And then you shuffle, and then if you have 2 or more face-up G units, then you give 3 units plus 3k. So it's basically, like, you know, a pretty nice search. It works in everything, it's not just Bloom, so that's pretty good. The art is also quite nice, but I don't know if she's super great, but definitely a pretty interesting Stride. The wording especially is very interesting. Next up we have kind of a wasted triple rare slot in Plumeria Flower Maiden Charl. So when she attacks Vanguard, if your Vanguard has Ranunculus in its name, you may, in red text, look at 7 cards from the top of your deck, call up to 1 card with the same card name as any of your units from among them to an open rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. So just basically giving you an additional attack if you can get lucky off the top 7. Next is a Bloom GB1. When your other unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on rearguard circle, you choose one of your rearguards, and until end of turn it gets plus 4k and boost. So sure, you can use her for, like, you know, some power gaining, but I feel like the Raoni, I believe her name is, engine is still a little bit better than this, but I know that some people are going to be excited to try this out as well, but I don't think she deserves the triple rare slot. The next generic card we have is Sacred Tree Dragon Rainbow Cycle Dragon. This one's kind of fun. When you put it face up into your G-Zone, so basically after you G-Guard with it, you can send 2 normal units with the same name from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck if you do turn it face down, so it's like an infinitely usable G-Guardian. It just kind of like keeps on, you can keep using it, you can also flip it face down so you can use other ones, so it's kind of interesting. I don't know if people would use it, but I actually quite like it. Next we have Resistant Lemon. It's a quintet wall, and then when you guard with it, you can choose a card from your drop zone, put it in the bottom of your deck. If you do, you choose one of your other guardians, and if you have other units with the same card name as that unit, then you call 2 cards from top of your deck to Guardian Circle, so it becomes a Septa Wall, I think. I think that's the right word, but yeah. Next we have Little Benefit Dragon, and his 7k power is definitely an indicator. The first skill is a continuous Vanguard and Rearguard Circle skill. When multiple units were chosen due to the effect of your card, this unit can be chosen as another unit up to 5 times. And then in brackets it says, for an effect where 2 chosen units get plus 3k, this unit can get 6k instead. So yeah, little benefit, that's kind of defeats the purpose of this whole deck, so I don't know. Next is an Act GB1, Canvas 1, this unit gets boost until end of turn. Yeah, again, little benefit. Alright, now let's continue onward with the Bloom cards. So here we have Prosperity Maiden Diane. First, a continuous rearguard skill. If you have a Vanguard with Ranunculus in its name or the Bloom ability, this unit gets plus 1k and resists. So it doesn't have to be necessarily Ranunculus, it could just be a Bloom unit. Second skill is a Bloom rearguard circle once per turn, GB1. When your other unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on rearguard circle, this unit gets plus 10k until end of turn. And at the end of that turn, you may Soul Blast 1. If you do, return this card to your hand. Plus 10k is definitely pretty interesting. It can be quite scary. Also, I'd like to point out that with the first skill, you can technically call it, like if you have a Bloom unit that is, you know, like grade 2 or even grade 1, like you can actually make her be an 8k on turn 1 or 2 with resist. So obviously it's not as useful as it normally would be on the later turns, but it's definitely interesting. But the second ability I think is the more important one in this case. Next we have Integrity Flower Maiden Zitalina. You may have up to 16 of her in your deck. I think I saw a deck somewhere on Twitter that actually did that, and it was kind of, it didn't top, it was just like a fun build, but her art is nice, so I understand the temptation. Her other skill is Vanguard and Rearguard Circle, not GB1, Counterblast 1. When your other unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, you may Counterblast 1. If you do look at 3 cards from the top of your deck, call up to 1 card with a Bloom ability from among them to an open Rearguard Circle, and this unit gets boost until end of turn. If you did not call, you countercharge 1, shuffle your deck. So in the end, like, even if you don't call, you can refund the cost, so it's not that bad. I'm not sure what the point of this card really is, with the whole 16 in deck, but you know, if you want to do it, feel free. Next, there's a grade 2 and a grade 1 of the same card. We're going to talk about the grade 2, which is Knight of Deliberation Memoriam. The art is honestly not that impressive, but when he's retired from Guardian Circle, you put him on the bottom of your deck. That's pretty good. His other skill is a bit more interesting. On Rearguard and Guardian Circle, Bloom GB1. When your other unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on Rearguard or Guardian Circle, this unit gets plus 2k power and plus 5k shield until end of turn. So technically, every time you guard with either him or something that can copy his name, he gets the plus 5k shield. So technically you could like build it up and then intercept with him when he has a lot of power going on. So that's just like an idea I had while reading over this, but I think it's not very practical, so there's just a little bit of that. Next we have Flower Pot Elf. As a starter, you may put her into your soul and choose one of your units until end of turn. It gets the continuous skill. This unit gets plus 1k for each of your units with a Bloom ability. I don't think that's going to equal to much power compared to other things you can do, so I think once again it's a slightly inferior starter, plus being 4k only. And the final Bloom card is Lupinous Knight. It's a stand trigger, GB1. When your other unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on Rearguard or Guardian Circle, until end of turn this unit gets the skill. At the end of each turn, you may return this unit to your hand. I'm not sure like why you would use it, I guess just to refresh the skill, but I feel like it's not that amazing, so I feel the other stand triggers that have been out so far are doing the job better. And the final archetype for Neo Nectar that got support and got quite a few cards of support is the Maiden of archetype, and there is a deck going around, the Maiden of GB8 deck. If enough people are interested, I can put it in the description, but it's pretty interesting. I've played against it quite a few times, but doesn't use many of the new cards. But anyway, first we have Maiden of Fertility Governing Lily. Her skill is, when she attacks, you may flip a unit face up. If you do, reveal up to the same number of cards from the top of your deck as the number of cards on your Vanguard, Rearguard, and face-up cards in your G-Zone with Maiden of in their names. And then choose up to 5 cards with the same card names as any of your units with Maiden of in their names from among them, call them to separate rearguard circles and shuffle your deck. So this includes a lot of zones for its effect, meaning you can pretty much always get a full field out, which is pretty nice for just a flip anything face up. You don't pay any other cost, so it's actually a pretty good stride, I feel, for Maiden of. So I think it's quite reasonable to do this skill as well, considering like how many of the top cards you can look at and then try to fetch 5. So pretty interesting, pretty interesting. The other Maiden of stride we have is a rare, which is Protector Lotus Maiden of Yggdrasil. Act once per turn, countless 1, Soul Blast 1. If you have a hard card with Maiden of in its name, choose up to 3 units with Maiden of in their names from your front row, and until end of turn they get plus 5k power. And when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, call up to 1 card with the same card name as the card in your Vanguard or Rearguard Circle from among them to Rearguard Circle and shuffle your deck. Gives on hit skills. It technically, like this one, asks you to pay a bigger cost. It does give 3 Maiden of units plus 5k. Unlike the other stride, which just kind of gives you a full field, but you know, you have to pay a slightly bigger cost for this. But I think it could be usable, but yeah, I'm not sure. Next is Maiden of Produce. Her first skill is a continuous Vanguard circle. If you have a Maiden of Produce on your rearguard circle, this unit gets plus 2k. I just ask for a Maiden of Produce, so it doesn't like stack if you have like 3 on rearguard circles. So it's just a plus 2k basically. On top of that, when you stride a Maiden of on top of her, you can choose 2 of your units and give them plus 2k, and the skill that when their attack hits a Vanguard, you can search your deck for up to 1 Maiden of Produce, call it to your rearguard circle, and shuffle your deck. Okay, on-stride skill, it's interesting to see an on-stride rare card, but that's about the most exciting thing I can say about this. Next up we have Maiden of Glowshine. When she's called, you can choose one of your rearguards with Maiden of in its name and rest it. If you do choose up to 4 Maiden of Glowshines on your rearguard circles, they get plus 3 cancel end of turn. Then the units chosen with this effect get plus 3 cancel end of turn for each grade 4 card with Maiden of in its card name on your Vanguard circle or face-up card on your G-Zone and boost. So gives 3k if you're striding into a Maiden of, and then another 3k for each like stride that you already went through that is Maiden of. So overall builds up a lot of power and gives boost. So she's actually quite a nice card, I'd say. And the second last Maiden of card is Maiden of Breed Drain. At the end of your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Maiden of in its name and this unit is resting, you can choose a normal unit from your drop zone and put it on the bottom of your deck and retire this unit. If you do, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck and call all Maiden of Breed Drain from among them to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. If you didn't call, you draw a card. It's kind of to compensate for the fact that you had to retire her if you didn't call, so you get to draw. Pretty interesting, but I feel like there's a different card that does something like this a bit more efficiently. And the final card is the starter, which is Maiden of Corantos. Sounds a bit Spanish. Skill is, at the end of the battle, that she boosted a rearguard with Maiden of in its name, has to be rearguard. If you have a face-up card in your G-Zone or your Vanguard is in Legion, you can counterblast 1 Maiden of and choose a card from your hand and discard it. If you do choose one of your other rearguards in the same column as this unit, stand it and retire this unit. I don't know if discarding and retiring her balances out for counterblast 1 to you know, stand a rearguard, unless it's like huge power, sure, but I feel like it's a bit too overcosted for what it actually does. And that's going to be the end of the Neo Nectar segment, and I'm sorry if I sound like I'm kind of not enjoying it that much, but that's because I don't really enjoy Neo Nectar as a whole unless it's Musketeers. Moving on. Would you believe me if I told you that there are more After Image cards in this set than there are Dominate cards? Yeah, it's that bad. Unfortunately, Nubatama did not get much out of this set, and even the GR Shiranui Mukuro is honestly not that great either. Or well, he's great on paper, but he doesn't do that much for the deck, although his SGR does look really good. Alright, so let's go over Evil Eye Hades Emperor Shiranui Mukuro. First off is a Dominate Act Vanguard Circle once per turn GB2. You Soul Blast 2 and choose a face down card from your G-Zone and turn it face up, and then choose a card from your hand and discard it. You stand and dominate all of your opponent's Vanguards and attack. For that battle, that Vanguard battles all of your opponent's rearguards. Now, if you don't watch the anime, you might not have realized that you do take the drive checks that your opponent's Vanguard would normally do because it's treated as your Vanguard. So this is in a way the same as Alfred, the Blaster Alfred, except not as good because Alfred spreads the pressure over 2 units by giving your rearguard drive checks. This gives your opponent's Vanguard a drive check, and essentially it's a field nuke, and you get 2 more triggers. But that field nuke goes against what the deck wants to do because it wants to gain power on your units for each of your dominated units' attacks. It wants to draw cards when your opponent's dominated unit attacks, and it wants to do this, you know, not just once at times, although there tends to be a once per turn ruling on some of them, but like, I feel like this just goes against what the deck wants to do. It wants to just keep putting units on your opponent's field and forcing your opponent to get attacked. And the thing is, like, the whole pressure point of Dominate is that it's small attacks at your opponent's Vanguard, and they just get bullied by them, and then, you know, they lose a lot of hand cards and that's it. When you dominate their Vanguard, they attack their rearguards, sure, you're gonna get 2 cards in their hand, but they're gonna lose nothing from their hand because they're just gonna let it slide. Sure, they'll lose their field, but most decks can tend to just bring it right back. So because they're not losing as many cards in hand either, it's just not gonna hurt them as much because, you know, they're just gonna lose the field, which they can bring back with the hand that they just saved from not being bullied by your dominate attacks. So it's a pretty good card. It's a field wipe. Against some decks it'll be good. Obviously you want to run it just because of that factor. But honestly, I feel like it's when it was revealed, it looked really amazing, but right now I don't think it's all that great. Up next we have Stealth Beast Tamahaga Nemitsu. First skill is when this unit is called or ridden, you bind up to one card from the top of your deck face down. Then Rearguard Circle once per turn GB1. When a dominate unit attacks during your turn, you can counterblast 1. If you do, choose one face down card from your bind zone, and you may put it into your hand. If you do, this unit gets plus 10k until end of turn. It's basically an indirect counterblast 1 when your dominated unit attacks during your turn. Counterblast 1 to draw a card, except you're drawing from the bind zone, and you can have a sneak peek at it beforehand. And he gets plus 10k, so in a way this is a really good card. It does have once per turn, but it's honestly pretty good. You can choose to play this or the other old grade 2 that let you draw a card when a dominated unit attacked. And now honestly one of the best cards for dominate in this set that honestly in my opinion takes the cake is Stealth Dragon Ungai. First skill is when a dominated unit attacks during your turn, you may choose a card from your hand and discard it. If you do, draw a card and this unit loses this ability until end of turn. Basically a once per turn. The GB1, however, is the great part, which is when this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, you choose up to 2 of your rearguards and up to 1 of your opponent's units, and the power of those units increase or decrease to 11k until end of turn. So either bump yours to 11k or you bring your opponent's units down to 11k. We're looking at those cross rides and, you know, anything they could have done to gain power, like Gavriels or damage triggers or whatever else. So Ungai is pretty scary because one of the things that I mentioned in How to Be Dominate was, like, you know, to like let yourself get damaged, let yourself build up power on your opponent's turn, and then Ungai just comes in, he's like, haha, yeah, about that, never mind. So not only does it bring you down, you also can buff up like a 4k to 11k, so it's pretty crazy. And it's just an on-call, like you don't have to like discard anything, like soul blast anything, counterblast anything, nothing. It's just on-call, so really, really good card. Arguably one of the best cards for Dominate in this set. And what I believe is the final Dominate card is Stealth Beast Meimo Danuki. When you call him or ride him, you bind the top 2 cards of your deck face down, well, up to 2. And when a dominated unit attacks on GB1 once per turn on your turn, you can use a face down card from your bind zone and put into your soul. If you do this, you can get plus 5k until end of turn. So this time not to hand would be a bit too good. But yeah, that's the last one for the dominate cards, and now we move on to After Image. But before that, as a quick transition, there is a reprint of Dreadmaster, which is about damn time. It's been, wasn't it reprinted in BT13 too? I think it was, but that's also been quite a while ago, so yeah, pretty good. The first After Image card is Stealth Beast Gekiso Okami. You can rest him on GB1 and choose one of your units, and it gets plus 2 until end of turn, and then choose one of your opponent's rearguards and bind it face up. At the end of that turn, your opponent puts the card bound with this effect into their hand. The one thing I don't like about the bind Nubatama playstyle is that it still relies quite heavily on that one old BT13 starter that puts the bound things into drop zone so that they actually lose cards in hand. I guess the other playstyle is just to bind a lot and then just go really aggressive and try to kill them that turn, but you know, you can't really do that every single turn. Next we have Stealth Rogue of Reputation Yorihira. After Image and GB1 Continuous Rearguard Circle. This is a grade 3 with 11k. During your turn, if the number of cards in your opponent's bind zone is 2 or more, he gets plus 5k power. Would be nice if it was like plus 5k for every 2 cards, but for now it's just a 16k attacker on After Image. Nothing too special apart from that. Next up we have Stealth Dragon Hojin. When this unit is called on GB1, your opponent chooses a card from their bind zone and puts it into their drop zone. There we go, this is a good card. If there is a card in your opponent's bind zone, this unit gets plus 3k on a turn. So you want to bind several and then use him, and obviously like for After Image to go off, you need them to like return something from bind to hand, but if you can keep that to, like, you know, make them lose 5 and then just gain 1 back, it's kind of okay. So it just depends on how you play it out. Next we have Stealth Rogue of Detonation Teriyoshi. When he's placed on Rearguard Circle on GB1, if the number of cards in your opponent's hand is 5 or less, you Soul Charge 1. So it depends on, you know, how well you've controlled your opponent's hand, and then you can get 1 whole Soul Charge. Incredible. Next we have Fast Speed Stealth Rogue Genzo. When he's called, choose one of your other rearguards and gets plus 2k until end of turn for each card in your opponent's bind zone. So that's another interesting way. He is only 8k, so it's a bit unfortunate. So he's not going to be gaining any power himself, but You can convert this to quite a lot, but you know, every turn you have to like bind a lot for him to be, you know, threatening, so I don't think it's that good of a card. And then the last card is Stealth Beast Kazemamo. You can rest it on GB1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and bind him face up, and at the end of that turn your opponent puts that card into their hand. I still think the older starters are better than this one, so that's that. And that's actually the end of the Nubatama stuff. Like, there really isn't all that much. They didn't give it much in this set, and especially not the Dominate stuff, despite it being the main antagonist of the season. Bushiroad, I don't really get this. Up next we have everyone's favorite Shadow Paladin. We'll be splitting this up into the generic, or well, playable in anything cards, the ritual cards, and the cleric cards, because that's the archetype that got support this time. We'll be starting off with a somewhat ugly SGR, which is Dragstrider Luard. Let's go over the skill and then I'll talk about what I think of him. Ritual 7 GB2, you choose 2 of your rear guards and retire them. When the unit attacks, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose any number of cards from your hand and discard them, and he gets plus 3k for each card discarded. If the number of cards discarded is 2 or more, until the end of that battle, this unit gets critical +1, drive +1, and your opponent can't guard with grade 1 or greater cards from hand to Guardian Circle. When I first saw this card, I thought it was a bit underwhelming for a GR and like the final version of Luard basically, but after playing against it in Japan, it's actually quite scary, because I think the reason why I thought that in the first place is because like with GRs you often think like, oh, you're only going to play like 1 or 2. But with this guy you can play like 3 of him and every turn go into him, like retire 2, drop like 2 or 3. You know, so I've had opponents even drop 5 on me and then still be able to get back a bunch of hand. Like survive next turn. They get themselves a drive check, a critical, they're hitting for like 60k if they drop like 5. And you know, it's just like, and the guard restrict on top of that is quite scary. So being able to use this every turn for like 3 turns back to back is quite scary because of the drive +1 and critical +1. And then the guard restrict is just like, you know, it drives the pressure of the crit +1 and drive +1 into you with that guard restrict, because you just, there's so much less that you can guard with, and you just have to hope that your deck plays good G guards to be able to deal with this. So it's actually a really good card. It surprisingly really like dominated the meta. Not so much dominated, but it fit into the meta very well, and it kind of shaped it, but without being super crazy, is what I want to say. So very good card, and actually a very nice approach to designing a very good card as well. So I think like Dragstrider Luard is actually a really good card and also has nice art. He also apparently wears high heels in his official art, so that's something I wanted to mention. I have this next card in generic, even though I realize its name is not, which is Supremacy True Dragon Claret Sword Helheim. Yes, this is Claret support, but it's playable in everything, because let's read the skill. When a Sentinel or G-Guardian is placed on your opponent's Guardian Circle, or when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, you may choose a face-down card with the same name as this unit from your G-Zone and turn it face up, so Persona Flip. If you do, search your deck for up to the same number of grade 1 or less cards as the number of face-up cards in your G-Zone, call them to separate rearguard circles, and shuffle your deck. Now, this doesn't specify any kind of heart. It is actually playable in everything. And like the condition for this guy is amazing. The APG, it goes off. The G-Guard, it goes off. It hits, it goes off. Like they have to guard with like hard zeros and like 1s and 2s, or like intercepts, and like otherwise it will go off. So it's a pretty scary card, and it's basically like at the moment that they stride it, this will almost always go off and give you like the full field right back. So, and the fact that this is not once per turn, meaning every time you Sentinel or G-Guard, even on different attacks, like rearguard attacks, it's still gonna go off. Like the only one that has to hit is him for him to go off, but like the Sentinel and G-Guard one is like anytime. So this can go off many times and keep whacking you in the face, and it's actually a really scary finisher. It can also finish off the Shadow Paladin player if they deck out by searching out everything, but it's very scary. It's a really good card, and it's playable in everything, so just all the more reason to play it in all your Shadow Paladin decks. Next we have a new G-Guard, which is Dragweiser Bronach. When you guard with her, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck and call all the grade 1 cards from among them to Guardian Circle and put the rest in the bottom of your deck in any order. I didn't think, like when I saw her, I kind of just like shrugged her off, and then my opponent used her against me, and I was like, wait, shit, this is like a free like a free one that just grabs all your grade 1s. Like you can get like 3. That's like a 15k shield. That's like a 30. You're sitting on 41 power, like with the shield included with this girl, and you're just like, whoa, actually she's pretty good, and she doesn't cost anything, and she fuels your ritual. Like you can use her as the first G-Guard. She's pretty insane actually. So really good G-Guard, only a rare too, so I shrugged it off at first, but definitely very good. Next we have another reprint of Branwen. The reason I say another is because she was the winner's promo in Japanese, so yeah, been reprinted quite a few times now. Next is the Gigantic Shutter. When he attacks a Vanguard, you can retire 2 of your rear guards. If you do, you draw a card, countercharge 1, and he gets +3 cancel at that battle. It reminds me of the Kotal from Zodiac Time Beasts, because it countercharges, gets power, and then also draws a card, which is pretty cool. Except this time you do have to retire 2, and it's not as it's not as easily fetchable, I want to say, but still pretty interesting card. Like maybe like a 1-of or something. Maybe this could work. I'm kind of thinking, no, it couldn't work with a loop build because it can't. I feel like retiring 2 is a bit too much, but no, just an idea. Next we have Demon World Castle Vangen Bez. I read Bees the first time, but I guess it's Bez. The skill isn't anything too special. I just like that it's a Demon World Castle. It's been a long time since we had one, so yeah, skill really isn't all that special. Art is kind of nice though. Next we have Drag Wizard Enid. When she's retired from Rearguard Circle for the effect or cost of your card during your turn, choose up to 2 of your units and they get +3 cancel on of turn. She's actually not bad. She's just 7k, so like even if you call her normally, like she'll be like 7 with a buff like 10k or whatever. And then when you retire her, you can buff up a couple things. You can do that several times. So overall, like actually she's not bad. Like I've had one of my opponents, so like the final round of a shop tournament, play her, and I was like, oh wait, this card actually does things and helps you win. So I was like, oh, that's kind of good. Obviously space is limited, so there's a big consideration of if you want to play it or not, but yeah, just something I thought I would throw out there. And the final generic card is not that special, it's just a new draw trigger but drawn by Lack, meaning it's definitely worth the mention. So now let's go on to the other archetypes. Up next we'll be taking a look at the Claret stuff. First off, we have Supremacy Dragon Claret Sword Dragon Revolt. So this is the new Claret Grade 3, this time I'm not going to put it in the generic section, even though it could technically work that way. But his first skill is the actual stride skill, which is when you stride, you can counterblast 1. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your deck until 2 grade 1 cards have been revealed. Call a card from among those grade 1 cards to Rearguard Circle and put the other one into your hand and then shuffle your deck. And it also says in parentheses, if there's only 1 grade 1 card, then call it. So that means if you go through your whole deck and you only find 1 grade 1, then you call that one. So this skill is quite nice, because for counterblast 1 it gets you a rearguard and a card in hand, so you can like call out something with an effect and then put like a perfect guard or a stride fodder into your hand, and you reveal until you get those 2, so it's pretty good. His second skill is a GB2, so they're like the different order. When he is attacked, you choose one of your grade 1 rearguards and you may move it to Guardian Circle. If you do and you have no rearguards, this unit gets +2 cancel on a turn. The main thing is just that when he's attacked, you can just move your rearguards to Guardian Circle. That skill is not as amazing, but still pretty good. But honestly, the stride is like the most amazing part of the new Claret support. Up next, we have Morion Spear Dragon. First, he has an in-deck GB1 skill. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Claret Sword Dragon in its name, this card gets grade -1. Therefore, it's searchable by most of your grade 1 specific effects. Next up, he has the Rearguard GB1 skill. When this unit attacks a Vanguard and is boosted by a grade 1, this unit gets +5 cancel into that battle. That one doesn't specify you having a Claret Vanguard, so you can even use that in a non-Claret deck. You just lose his in-deck grade 1 skill. But overall, pretty nice card. It kind of reminds me of Nehalem, except instead of being a 16k attacker, it's an 11k attacker and does require the boost, so it's a bit inferior in that regard, but still a pretty strong grade 2 in my opinion. Next, we have an interesting take on a stride fodder with Blue Espada Dragon. When you're paying the cost for stride, if you have a Vanguard with Claret Sword Dragon in its name, you may pay with counterblast 1 and retire an Espada Dragon from your Rearguard Circle. So instead of dropping a card, you can counterblast 1 and retire him from your field instead. I don't think that's too good because you're losing on a counterblast for something like that, so it's an okay idea, but I don't think it's actually that usable. And the final Claret card is Pedigree Knight Tigress. Act counterblast 1, retire him. If you do, you look at the top 7 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Claret Sword Dragon in its name from among them, put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. If you already have a Vanguard with Claret Sword Dragon in its name, you draw a card. Not so good because you can whiff it and it's only gonna like recompensate itself if you already have a Claret sword. So basically, like, it's like, why would you search for grade 3 when you're already on grade 3? Plus it doesn't go to soul, it retires, so it's kind of unfortunate. So overall, I'm not the biggest fan of this one. I think the older Claret starter is much better. And finally, we're going to take a look at the remaining ritual cards. First, we have Drag Wizard Noise. I think that's how you pronounce it. GB1 Ritual 3, when this unit is called, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, call up to one grade 1 or less card from among them to rearguard circle, shuffle your deck, and at the end of that turn, put the unit on the bottom of your deck. If you call the unit with a ritual ability, until end of turn this unit gets plus 2k, then if it is a grade 1, he gets another 3k. So basically, usually going to be getting that plus 5k. This works really well in the Loop Luard build. Overall, this is great for all Luard decks because it basically gets you any card. It doesn't come in rested either, but it works really good in the Loop build. But honestly, like, this card is amazing. One of the best cards, one of the best double rares in the set. So honestly, like, for Ritual, like, they already had such an amazing deck, and it got even better with this and the new GR. Next, we have Sweep Ulnar Kethlin. And in her art, you can see Swift Owl, so I'm just going to put up both of them at the same time. Her skill is Ritual 3. At the end of your turn, you can combust 1 and retire one of your other rearguards. If you do, retire all of your opponent's rearguards in the same column as this unit. Pretty good. It's kind of like a Neoflame, except it's end of turn, so like, it's kind of nice because I think Asha calls like at the end of turn, of like any turn, so technically like, you could let Asha call, and then you can still do this, I think. So that's kind of interesting, but you know, that's just a random interaction that just came to my mind. The Owl is Ritual 3. When this unit is called from your deck, you can Soul Blast 1. If you do, it gets plus 7k until end of turn. Which is actually quite attractive because that's a 14k attack or boost. It's not specified, so honestly the Owl is pretty good too. I think she's alright as well. She's some nice removal. The deck already has quite a bit with like Doomed and whatnot, but overall, like, she's pretty nice and definitely really nice art as well. Next, we have Drag Wizard Semias. When she's called on Ritual 3 GB1, if you have a Vanguard with Lured in its name, you can combust 1. If you do, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, call them separate rearguard circles, and at the end of that turn, retire the unit is called with this effect and this unit. Again, works pretty well for the loop, because you just kind of call everything. You can retire all 3 basically, and then you just keep on looping and looping and looping, and it just goes on and on and on. So I feel like this helps the loop build overall, like it's not a wasted R slot. So definitely pretty nice. And the final Ritual and Shadow Paladin card is Diffarbal. Ritual 3 GB1. When this unit is retired from your rearguard circle for the effect or cost of your card with the ritual ability, you may put it into the soul. If you do, look at the top card of your deck, call it to your rearguard circle, or put it into your drop zone. So if you need Ritual, 7? Then you can always use this guy, but I think you'll be fine without it. Because I feel like Ritual is one of those keywords that's so easy to achieve. So I don't think the deck should be struggling too much with it. Anyway, that's going to be it for the Shadow Paladin section. I honestly think a lot of these cards are super strong. Shadow Paladin got a lot out of this set, and it's looking very good, both for, well, for Luard especially, but it's nice to see some other decks popping up as well. So, moving on to the next one. Up next, the clan that I just talked about in my previous video, Gear Chronicle. So I already went over a lot of the big deep points in my Zodiac Timepiece feature, so make sure you check that out if you're interested in the deck. But we're still going to go over all the new cards, maybe not in as much depth, at least not the ones that we already looked at, but I'm still going to talk about them, you know, as much as I can. So this time it's split up into Fang, ZTB, and the just general cards. So first we're going to go over the general ones. So first is the reprint of Steam Tamer Arca. It's a very important reprint. It's still expensive even as a reprint, so do keep that in mind. Next we have Pulsar Obstinacy Ox. It is a ZTB, but its skill does not restrict it to being played in just a ZTB deck. It gains 1k for each face-up card in your G-Zone on Vanguard or rearguard circles. Doesn't have GB1. And also you can once per turn combust 1 to get the same effect again, meaning you can do it again, but if you call it in the middle of the battle, then you won't be able to do that because it's an act. But that is a really good effect, and it can push for damage pretty easily, so it's a really nice card. Next we have Steam Knight Shulgi. When he attacks, you can combust 1. If you do, he gets plus 4k until the end of that battle. And if this unit was boosted by a Steam Gunner Xushin, your opponent cannot call grade 0 cards from hand to Guardian Circle until the end of that battle. So the one that goes together with him is Steam Gunner Xushin. If you have a Shulgi in the same column as her, she gets plus 3k, so together they form a 17k line sorry, 21k line if you use Shulgi's effect. And when an attack hits during the battle that she boosted, you can soul blast 1 if you do choose one of your opponent's grade 1 or less rear guards, and your opponent has to bot deck it. So her effect is a bit more versatile, still a 6k, so it's a bit unfortunate, but her art is really nice, and the guy is also pretty good, but she's especially cute. Next we have Steam Lynx M. When he's retired from rear guard circle or guardian circle, you may bind him, and in the bind zone he has a skill where you can counterblast 1 and put him into your drop zone and bind 2 cards from the top of your deck. You choose 2 of your units and they get +2k until end of turn. Pretty good. I think this was more usable in Chronofang than your other decks, but still a very nice card. Next is Pulsar Tamer Hegald. We already talked about this in the feature. First, he has if you have a grade 4 Vanguard, this unit gets the skill. You Soul Blast 1 and bot deck him, and then you choose a card from your drop zone, bot deck it, and counter charge 1. And then his GB1 skill is on call, you can soul charge 1. So the last card that is general, but it has Zodiac Timepiece in the attributes, making it very good, is Pulsar Thruster Bison. It's just an insole 3k to something, but it's very good because it's a ZTB crit with a skill. So yeah, important cards, but for now let's go over the actual main archetypes of this set. So we're gonna begin with, let's say with Fang. So first we have Chrono Tiger Gear Glare. I think Liger Glare was the name of a attack in Build Fighters. Anyways, he has 2 skills. First is once per turn act, Soul Blast 1 and Persona Flip. If your hard card is a Gear Beast, choose any number of your opponent's rear guards with the sum of their grades being less than or equal to the number of cards in your bind zone, and your opponent puts them on the bottom of their deck in any order. In most cases, this is gonna be just wiping out your opponent's field. His GB3 skill is continuous. If the number of cards in your bind zone is 5 or more, this unit gets +10k. Then if it's 7 or more, it gets a critical. And if it's 9 or more, it gets drive +1. Really good. You know, he just like, on GB3, no cost attached, you just have to bind a lot. He's gonna attack for 36k with a crit and a drive check. Additional drive check. Plus, on top of that, he can also wipe out your opponent's field. So, pretty scary card. I wouldn't say he's super amazing, but he does work quite well with what the deck tries to do. Next we have Steam Lynx Adado Apura. That's the name. When this unit is on GB1, when this unit is called, if you have Vanguard with Chronofang in its name, you can counterblast 1 and choose one of your other rear guards and bind it face up and bind the top card of your deck face up. If you do, you draw a card and it gets +3k until end of turn. Your opponent chooses one of their rear guards and puts it on the bottom of their deck. If your opponent didn't, then you countercharge 1. So that forces them into a very interesting situation where they have to lose a unit, or you're going to be able to just get your cost back, and you also bind some units, which is like basically your win con in the deck. So this guy is really good. Like, he's also 12k attacker on his own, so you can boost him with virtually anything to achieve over 16k, and it's just really nice. So it's kind of nice. It's like, counterblast 1, would you like to lose a unit? That's basically what this does. And if they don't, then you just get that counterblast back just like that. So overall, really good grade 2, and it's only a rare. Next we have Forward Pressing Gear Tiger. When this card is bound face up, not from your deck, if you have a Vanguard with Chronofang in its name, you can bind the top card of your deck face up. If you do, Soul Charge 1. I like the wording, not from your deck, but that is, you know, that way you don't loop it, and you know, it's pretty important. His other skill is GB2. When you call it, if you have Vanguard with Chronofang in its name, this unit gets +1k on a turn for each card in your bind zone. Now that's big. You can get like +5 easily, +10, you know, I would even say. So it makes sense that it's GB2 restricted, because it can achieve some really big numbers. Not only your Vanguard is hitting for really big numbers, but also your sides can also be hitting for quite a lot. Next we have Steam Lynx Nadine. What is it with like Chronofang and getting all these like cute silver-haired girls, like goddamn. So, act, bind zone once per turn, counterblast 1 and bind the top card of your deck face up. If you have Vanguard with Chronofang in its name, call this card to rearguard circle, and it gets +1k until end of turn for each card in your bind zone. That's pretty big. But then if the number of cards in your bind zone is 3 or more, you soul charge 1, and if it's 5 or more, you draw a card. It's kind of like Librarian, just from bind zone and, you know, Chronofang restricted, but I see this as a Librarian, meaning it's a pretty nice card. Even though she's 8k power, I think she's actually quite alright. And that's actually the end for the Chronofang cards, leaving us just with the ZTB ones. So the main character of this set, Chrono Dragon Gear Next, comes with a pretty good skill. The best part of him is that he's for now nicer priced than Next Stage is, and he's much more affordable. For those of you that want to start Gear Chronicle, I'd recommend picking them up now before it spikes. But let's go over his skills first and the reason why he's so good. Act once per turn, GB2, Soul Blast 1, and Persona Flip. This unit gets the once per turn skill. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked anything by the way. If your hard card is Gear Dragon, reveal up to 3 Zodiac Time Beasts in total from either rearguard circles or your hand. So you can take like 2 from rearguards, 1 from hand, like any of that combination, and put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. If you put 3 cards, stand this unit and it gets drive -2. And then, he will be restanding and only attacking with 1 drive check, but on GB4, during this unit's second battle, it gets plus 10k and drive +1. So drive checking a total of 5 times, kind of like Alfred does, except all in one unit. Chrono did this in the recent episode, and he didn't achieve GB4, so he only got 1 drive check off, so don't forget kids, you gotta get that GB4. So overall, this is a really good card. It's just, it's not as good as Next Stage, because Next Stage can allow you to do things with your Chrono Dragon G, but this is like still very good, and it also sadly doesn't work against Link Joker, as we saw in the last episode, because if you can't, you're going to be stuck with bot decking from your hand, which is still okay, I guess, because you're not discarding them either, so it's quite nice. So you're not losing out on too much and doesn't cost any counterblast. So like even in the Link Joker matchup, I think it's kind of okay. Like if you lock up everything, you just have to have a healthier hand, and then you're still gonna get, like, you're gonna bot deck 3 from hand, but you're still gonna get 2, so you're only really losing 1 card, and like losing, it's going back to your deck, so it's really not that bad. So Chrono Dragon Gear Next is definitely a super good stride, and I really hope that it stays at more or less the same price as it is now, but we'll see if the me in 6 months eats his words or not. Next, we have the very strong Pulsar Spearhead Unicorn. We talked about this guy before. On GB1, he's an 11k attacker if you have a Chrono Jet Vanguard, and when he attacks a Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 and look at the same number of cards from the top of your deck as the number of ZTB units. Call up to 1 ZTB with a different name as this unit from among them to rearguard circle, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. And yes, the count of ZTB units includes himself as well, so you can essentially get up to 6 from the top of your deck to choose one of the units that you're going to call. Like, there's so many things you can do with this guy. Most importantly, he gives you an extra attack, and it just makes him so strong. We talked about him in more depth in the previous video, so I'm not going to spend too much time here either. And the final card for this whole segment on Gear Chronicle is Pulsar Duplex Dragon. Again, also talked about this guy in the previous video, so if you want to find out more detail, then go check that out. His skill is, when he's called, if you have a grade 3 or greater Zodiac Time Beast Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1. If you do, you bind the top card of your deck face up, and if that card is a ZTB, you choose one of your opponent's rearguards with grade less than or equal to that card, and your opponent puts that unit on the bottom of their deck. So even in the worst case scenario, you are going to bot deck their starter or an annoying trigger that they may have, which is already pretty good because you can do it before you even stride, but that's actually the worst case scenario. In any other case, you're going to bot deck something even more important. So as I said before, like, it's a bit of an RNG card, but it's still very good. And the higher you bind the top card, the higher grade it is, the higher your scope of choosing what you want to bot deck. So overall, this card is really good and gives Zodiac Time Beast some removal as well. And on that note, that's going to be it for this Gear Chronicles segment. We're finally up to our second last clan for this video, which is going to be Narukami. So I think you guys know which one I'm most hyped about. But Narukami, I almost built the new Vanquisher because I was really hyped by it at the start. I played around with it a little bit on tabletop and I liked it. But then when I watched people I know in Tokyo play it and just seeing how it was being played in tournaments, I realized the deck was a little bit too slow right now to compete with the top meta. It's still good, I think. It counters 2 really prominent meta decks, one being less prominent, so Luard and Night Rose. But I feel like it's a bit too slow in all the other matchups, and that's a bit unfortunate, but let's go over the support anyway. And honestly, like in other regions it might be better, it's just like from what I'm seeing of the Japanese meta, I just feel like it doesn't fit in all that well, but we'll see how things go on. But first off, we do have a reprint of Dragonic Vanquisher. This one isn't that important because the new Vanquisher is that much better, and your backup grade 3 is the one I'm going to recommend. Might be a bit surprising, but I will explain why, and I think most of you will understand. But anyway, this is our reprint for the set. And I'm gonna immediately go over the Thunderstrike cards first, and then do the generic cards, and then we'll go over the Eradicators. So our first card is gonna be Conquering Supreme Dragon Dragonic Vanquisher V Buster. So this is the brand new stride for Vanquisher, and he has 2 skills, both of which are very good. First one is an act once per turn, Soul Blast 1 and Persona Flip. Your opponent chooses 1 card from each of their rear guards and drop zone and binds them face up. So 1 rear guard and 1 drop zone. The rear guard one does not hit the drop zone before being binded, it just goes straight to the bind. And if the number of your rear guards is greater than your opponent's, you choose up to 3 of your units and they get plus 3k until end of turn. So this is really good because if you have anything that's attacking for like 18, for example, you can give this a 3k and it'll be hitting for 21k. And it'll be hitting for 21k, and we will be going over a unit later that does really like this. His second skill is GB3 Continuous Thunderstrike 7. All of your front row units get plus 5k, and this unit gets plus 1 critical and plus 1 drive. So overall a very solid stride. Honestly, this card is pretty incredible because it basically removes 1 card from the field and 1 from the drop zone, which hurts a lot as well against a lot of decks. Buffs up your units the first time, and then it buffs up your front row and gives itself the buff as well, and the crit and the drive plus 1. So overall this stride is really insane. It's really good against a lot of things. It's your first stride for sure. You can stride it again after that, but you know, eventually the target will change to other things as you progress through the game. But this is definitely your first stride now, and it's a very strong one at that. And next we have the new Dragonic Vanquisher Sparking, and this card is, in my opinion, the MVP of the set. His first skill is a Thunderstrike 4. At the beginning of your right phase, you either countercharge 1 or soul charge 1, and your opponent chooses a card from their drop zone and binds it face up. So at the beginning of any of your turns, as long as you have Thunderstrike 4, so your opponent has bind it 4 times, which by the way you can do on first stride with ease with his second skill. When you stride, you counterblast 1, and if you do, your opponent chooses a card from their drop zone, binds it. Then if you stride into a Thunderstrike card, your opponent chooses one of their rear guards, retires it, and binds it face up. And V-Buster has Thunderstrike, so basically on first stride, you get 2 off the strike skill and 2 off the V-Buster skill, and thus you have 4. Next turn you can either countercharge or soul charge. This is a really good, like, the countercharge is the best part, but sometimes you'll need the soul too. But most of the time, with a lot of the costs, you'll probably be countercharging, and with this you don't have to run the very expensive countercharging Anastasia PG anymore. This card is really good. It's a 4 of. It's your main grade 3 for the deck, and then your backup is basically up to you, but we'll go over one a bit later. Next is my personal favorite card from the set due to the art, which is Circular Blade of Strong Lightning Griselle. When she is attacked, or when chosen by the effect of an opponent's card, your opponent has to choose a card from the drop zone and bind it face up. So it's like if you're going to target her, she just forces your opponent to lose something from the drop, so they have to be very careful in playing around her if they don't want to lose anything. Then her second skill is very important, Thunderstrike 5. During your turn, she gets plus 9k, and if you have a Vanguard with Vanquisher in its name, you counterblast 1 and choose one of your opponent's rear guard circles, and until end of turn, when this unit attacks the Vanguard, it battles both the Vanguard and that unit at the same time. So she gains plus 9k, making her 18k, and as I mentioned with V-Buster, that plus 3k makes her 21 on her own without boost. If you give 30k to her booster, that's a 31k line, just like for no cost, apart from V-Buster's cost, which is already letting you plus, so this is so good. Like, she's like a mini brawler card too, like she battles 2 things at the same time, and then like if you were gonna target her, then you're gonna lose something too. It's Thunderstrike 5, but again, you're gonna get that either on first stride or on second stride, and like if it goes active in your second stride turn, then you know it's gonna be active. It's a continuous, so as long as it's during your turn that you achieve Thunderstrike 5, it's gonna be active. So super good card. Like, this card is insane. By far this is my favorite card. I think Sparking is the arguably best card, but she's my favorite. The next one we have is Summon Lightning Dancing Princess Anastasia, also a very good card. She's a perfect guard, and she can guard any of your units, not just the Vanguard. And when she's retired from Guardian Circle, if you're on Thunderstrike 4 or more, you can draw a card. So basically PG, you drop a card to pay the cost for the PG, and then you draw a card after that. So it basically refunds the cost, which is super good. You play her instead of the countercharging one because you don't need the countercharge anymore. But she's really good. Her art is also really nice, and just overall a very good PG, and basically the go-to one for Thunderstrike. Next we have Plea Lightning Helena. I believe Helena used to be an old grade 1, like a very old, one of the first Narukami cards actually. It was in the trial deck, I believe. But this one's been retrained and has GB1 Thunderstrike 3. When you call it, if you have a Vanguard with Vanguard in its name, you can counterblast 1. If you do draw a card and this unit gets +2 cancel out of turn, making it a 11k attacker, and you also draw a card, which is really big because the deck used to really lack ways to just, you know, have more cards in hand. Very obvious it seems, but the deck did lack it, and now this is basically helping it out a lot. So this card is definitely very good in the deck and definitely a very welcome addition. Next we have another really good card. A lot of these Narukami cards are insane, especially the Thunderstrike ones. So we have Smash Boxer Dragon. He has 2 abilities. The first one is during the battle this unit boosted a unit with a Thunderstrike ability on GB1. That unit and this unit cannot be chosen by the effect of your opponent's cards. So this makes your mirror match and your Kagero matchup a bit easier. You know, basically any control matchup that is capable of doing something to your field on your turn. And then his second ability is GB1 Thunderstrike 3. At the end of the battle, this unit boosted. If you have a Vanguard with Vanquisher in its name, you put him into the soul and you draw a card and countercharge 1. Really, really good card. Again, this countercharges on top of your already quite healthy countercharge engine, and draws you a card. Very important. Like, it converts itself into a card in hand, which is just super nice. Next we have Electro Butcher Dragon, or Uro Butcher Dragon. When he's called, you can counterblast 1. If you do choose one of your opponent's figures in the front row, retire it and bind it face up. And then on Thunderstrike 3, GB1, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, he gets +2 cancel into that battle. It's actually not that bad for common. Like, on-call retire bind is actually quite nice. So I'm quite the fan of this, even though it's just a common, and then he's attacking for 14k with a boost that's 21k at least, and then with all the like, you give him 5k from the GB4 of V-Buster, make him 26. So it's actually really not that bad of a common. I actually tried it out for a little bit before I realized what the best backup grade 3 was, and it's definitely not bad. Next we have Plasmatron Dragon. Has once per turn act Thunderstrike 4, counterblast 1, this unit gets +2 cancel out of turn for each card in your opponent's bind zone. If you somehow bind a bunch of cards before you go on any stride, because this is in GB1, you can actually do this beforehand. So, but even in late game, like, this scales over the turn, so like in late game this can become really big. And then when you call him, your opponent chooses a card from their drop zone and binds it face up, but that part is on GB1. Really, really good card. Again, a lot of, like, even the commons are amazing. This is quite surprising. You don't really get this that often. Next is Wyvern Strike Timlars. Thunderstrike 3, act Relay Circle, retire him, choose up to the same number of units as the number of cards in your opponent's bind zone, and they get +3 cancel out of turn. You know, maximum gonna be 5 units, because when you retire him, you just have 1 empty circle. But still, again, even then, it's actually quite alright. Not sure if this one will be that used, but it is pretty good. And the final card that we have for Thunderstrike, which is also, again, a super good card. Like, I don't think there's a single bad Thunderstrike card in this set, which is Hard Rod Draco Kid. This starter is so good, like, a lot of people are playing like 2, sometimes even 3, I think, because he's that good. Act, you can rest him. Your opponent chooses a card from their drop zone and binds it face up. If your opponent couldn't bind, you countercharge 1 and give one of your Thunderstrike units +3k. That's just insane. It's like, I'm gonna rest him. If you have something in the drop zone, it's going away. Also, by the way, not a GB1. But if you don't have anything in the drop zone because it's early game and you haven't guarded yet, or, you know, if I haven't retired anything of yours yet, then I'm just gonna give +3k to something and countercharge, which is like, well, you know, I'm just gonna do everything in one card, I guess. His second skill is a Thunderstrike 4, counterblast 1, put him into your soul, choose one of your units and he gets +3 cancel on of turn, and your opponent has to choose one of the rear guards, retire it, and bind it face up, also not on GB1. So he can bind up to 2 units in the same turn, but obviously you're probably going to be just resting him and just wait until next turn, rest him again, wait until next turn, rest him again, and just keep on binding or giving +3k and a counter charge to yourself. So overall, this is a really, really nice card. Like, this starter is nuts. It's actually crazy how good it is. So Thunderstrike got some very wholesome support in this set. It's actually insane how solid, like, I don't think I've ever seen a deck get this much, like, amazing support. I mean, technically D-Robo's got 3 amazing cards, but they only got 3 cards. Well, this is like a whole, like the main G deck, getting this much quality support is quite rare. There tends to be at least a few jank commons in there, but right now pretty much everything is playable, so that's actually quite amazing. So now as a transition, we're gonna go over the generic cards, and I think the first one is gonna surprise some because I'm putting it under generic and not under Eradicator, because this is Dragonic Descendant Sigma. He is an Eradicator, but his second skill is the reason why he's the backup grade 3. Or rather, not backup because you don't want to ride him, but he is the grade 3 you want on the rearguard circles because of his second skill. But first, his first skill, which is Eradicator specific, when you start an Eradicator on top of him, you can counterblast an Eradicator. If you do choose one of your Vanguards until end of turn, it gets plus 10k power, and when this unit stands, it gets drive plus 1. It's obviously supposed to interact with the Eradicator Stride, but it's still pretty good of a skill, but not as good as a second skill, which is Rearguard Circle once per turn GB1. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked the Vanguard. If the attack didn't hit, you counterblast 1 and discard a card from your hand. If you do, stand this unit. So you play this in Thunderstrike. You buff him up with a bunch of things like the starter and your V-Buster, and then let's say you attack with Vanguard first, you sack some crits and drop them on him, and then it's like he attacks with a bunch of crits, they PG it, and he's like, oh, well, here comes again, 26k, 31k with a bunch of crits, can you protect this twice? You know, it kind of reminds me of like how Blaster players just sack a bunch of crits onto their Blaster Blade and then restand it with Flogel a bunch of times. Like, this is so good in pretty much every single Narukami deck, because it just, like, that second part doesn't specify any kind of, like, you don't have to discard an Eradicator or anything, you just discard any card. You can play this in pretty much anything and have so much pressure, because not only are you pressuring them with your Vanguard with like an extra crit and a drive check and everything, but you're also pressuring them with like a rearguard that can hit for really big numbers and restand. So like when you're going for V-Buster, you go through 4 checks. Can you imagine how many things you can sack onto this guy? If you have 2 of them in the front row, that's like 2 huge Sigmas that can be restanding if they don't hit. So like when your opponent's on like 4 or 5, like they're gonna be PGing against this, or they're gonna die, or like a big enough G-Guard if they have access to one. So Sigma is a really good card and very important in general. So I put on the generic side because it's playable in everything because of that second skill. Next we have Mystic Wisdom Creation Brahma. It's a G-Guard. When you guard with it, you choose 2 cards with different grades in your drop zone and bind them face up. If you do, he gets plus 10k shield until the end of that battle. This is supposed to work with a Noble grade 3s, which, you know, you get like one new one every 2 or 3 years. Yeah, it's probably not going to happen for a while. This is the one for the next 2 years, by the way. So, yeah, interesting. I think some decks, like, I think even not Eradicators, Thunderstrike can use this, because, you know, you're just taking things from your drop zone, you probably don't need them anymore. So you just take something useless and gain 10k shield. It's like, even just for that, it's pretty good. So it's like, it's easy to put into a lot of things. Next we have a reprint of Mighty Bolt Dragoon, obviously an important reprint because there's a bunch of Vanquisher stuff in this set, and also a new Vanquisher as a whole. Then there's a reprint of Chatura, which is also quite important. I don't think, of course it's a sought after card, but I think it was still quite easy to find. Because G-BT12 sold pretty well, I think, although I guess it's been 10 sets since then, so it makes sense. Japan got this as a reprint for their August winners promo, so it looks quite nice, but it's also good that it got reprinted in English. Definitely one that is going to become needed eventually, so it's good to have more in circulation. And the final generic card before we move on to Eradicators is, well, this is an Eradicator, so it can serve as a kind of, like, leverage between them, which is Eradicator Sharp Impact Dragon. The reason why I put him under generic is because you can play him in anything. You put him into your soul and countercharge 1. That's all it does as a stand. It's alright in some decks. Vanquisher doesn't need it because it already countercharges so much. And there's a better stand as well. So, but, you know, that's pretty good. Alright, and finally the Eradicator stuff. First we have True Eradicator Aconitum Linchu. So Linchu, the very old starter, is now a Stride. And his skills in act once per turn. Cannabis 1 and Persona Flip and choose one of your rearguards with the Eradicator in its name and put into your soul. If you have a heart with the Eradicator in its name, your opponent chooses 2 of the rearguards for each face-up card in your G-Zone and retires them. Then if your opponent has no rearguards, you draw a card. As a first try, this is actually quite insane, because you're gonna snipe 2 things, and then like, if you didn't snipe, because it's an act, so you can like kill things with your rearguards first, and then use his skill to kill off the last 2 things, and then draw an extra card on top of that. If you stride it later on, then you're just gonna basically wipe out the whole field, because the moment you have 3 face-up G units, aka second stride, is gonna be when you can just kill off the whole field. So really good. It doesn't have much like finishing power, but the deck already has access to that with Descendant. So it's really good. As a first stride, it's definitely very nice. Possibly second stride too, but wouldn't be used too much after that. Next, Eradicator's got their own stride fodder, which makes me hope that, you know, especially with the upcoming Link Choke, the Starvader one, I'm like, maybe Dimensional Robos could have one in the future too. I think that'd be quite appreciated. But his skill is when you discard him from hand for the cost of stride, you cannabis 1. If you do look at the top 7 from the top of your deck, reveal up to 1 grade 3 or greater card with Eradicator in its name and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. So it's just when you pay for stride, you can have a chance to, you know, get yourself another stride fodder essentially. Or a Sigma that you can drop on the rearguard circle. And in hand, he just has the skill that if your Vanguard is an Eradicator, he is a grade 3 in your hand. Next we have Tracking Eradicator Dokukakuji. When he attacks a Vanguard, if you have Vanguard with Eradicator in its name, he's an 11k attacker, and at the end of the battle, your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Eradicator in its name attacked. If the attack didn't hit, you cannabis 1. If you do choose one of your Vanguards, and that unit and this unit get plus 5k until end of turn. Kind of an okay skill. Turns himself into a 16k attacker, but it depends on your opponent, on your Vanguard not hitting. You can technically do this more than once. Like you can they can PG the first attack, you restand, they PG the next one, and now you got, you know, plus 10k on him, so it's 21k on his own. But that will cost you 2 cannabis, so you know you have to decide if that's worth the cost or not. Next we have a new starter, which is Whistling Arrow Eradicator Kasonjo. When the attack of your unit with the Eradicator in its name hits a Vanguard during the battle of this unit boosted, you can retire her. If you do, reveal 3 cards from the top of your deck. If all of those cards have Eradicator in their names, put 1 card from among them in your hand and shuffle your deck. If you put a grade 3 card into your hand, soul charge 1. So this time it's finally giving you something to do when you actually hit, not just because a lot of these effects are like, oh, when you don't hit. So basically you just reveal the top 3, and then if they're all Eradicator, you just choose one. And if it happens to be a grade 3, then you can have an extra soul for whatever you may want to use it on. And the final Eradicator card that we have, which is also kind of generic, I could have put this with generic, is Force Wind Eradicator Shiva. Put her into the soul to get, or him into the soul to get plus 3k power until end of turn. So it's usable generically, but I just forgot because I saw the name Eradicator and it just kind of clicked in my mind. So overall, Narukami is looking very good this set. I think like, it depends if the meta slows down or not, then like suddenly Vanquisher becomes super amazing, but it's a very fun deck to play. So I think like if you're really good with it, then the sky's the limit. You can do really amazing things with it. Like people do amazing things with their favorite clans all the time, despite them not being the obvious pick in the current format. So this is a really good set for Narukami, and I think Narukami players should be quite happy about it. We're on to the final segment, which is OTT, and we're going to be starting off with the Oracle support because this is basically what saved the whole clan. Obviously, the first card is going to be Stillwater Festival Deity Ichishima. She has 2 skills, the first one of which is a once per turn act, Cannabis 1, Soulblast 1, and Persona Flip, and then you draw 2 cards. Easy as that. Her second skill is on GB3 Oracle. You choose any face down card from your G-Zone and turn it face up. During that turn, your opponent can't call G-Guardians and grade 0 cards from hand to Guardian Circle. This means just what it says, for the whole turn, there's no G-Guarding and no guarding with grade 0, so you're gonna have to stock up on those PGs. So this has 2 conditions, one of which is Oracle, so they do have to have 5 cards in hand, but it's an act, so they can activate it, even if they have just 5 cards, and then drop all their cards in hand, you know, as rearguards, and then the ability is gonna stay active because it's an act, not a continuous. Second is GB3, meaning your opponent can just like G-Guard and then finish the game. Like that's kind of what it comes down to. At some times, like if your OTT opponent let's say like let's throw an attack, you can just stop attacking for that turn so that they can't G-guard the next one, and so that they can't go into Ichikishima like on second stride, because like she is really insane, honestly a really good card. Basically revived all of Oracle Think Tank. Like every deck is now pretty amazing. Even Oracle Susanoo itself and Tsukiyomi and Battle Sisters and everything is just, I haven't seen Coco yet, but I feel like even Coco is gonna be able to do some stuff thanks to Ichikishima. Like she is a staple in OTT, a definite 4 of, and honestly, unless she gets banned or nerfed or errata'd one day, I think she will remain one of the best cards in the game. So that's the very solid start to the OTT support. Up next we have 1 Advantage Miko Nanase. She has the first skill that's off GB1. When her attack hits a Vanguard, you can counter blast 1, Soul Blast 1. If you do, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one into your hand and put the other one on the bottom of your deck. This is really good because it's not on GB1, so you can kind of play this even in Battle Sisters. Because it's nice hit pressure, plus her second skill is really good. It's a continuous GB2 Oracle. During her turn, she gets plus 1k for each card in hand. So when you're, kind of running around with 10 card hands, she's going to be a 19k base, making her a really, really good card. In Oracle, this is a staple. In other decks, you can choose to play it if you want to, because Oracle is very splashable into anything, so just if you feel like it, you can always play it. Next, we have a grade 1 that does a similar thing, which is Rapport Miko Nazna. She has Oracle. At the end of the battle she boosted, you may retire her if you do draw a card. So, not super amazing, but just a little bit of filtering. And when she's called on GB1, you choose one of your other rearguards with the Oracle ability in the same column as this unit, and until end of turn it gets the skill, which is the same as Nanase, plus 1k for each card in hand. So you can give that to something else, so even if she dies, you can give it to like a rearguard, and if you play stands, then keep her standing it. So, quite good. In Oracle, I think she's very important. In other decks, not so much, because they tend to have better options. Next, we have a common for Oracle. When you ride her, you can counter blast 1 if the number of cards in your hand is 5 or less, if you do draw a card. And then she has GB2 Oracle. At the end of your turn, you can counter blast 1. If you do, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 card with Oracle from among them, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. She's better than that one random rare we got in Trinity Dragon, but, for budget Oracle, she's alright, but I don't think Susanoo's are that expensive, so I don't think she's that needed. Next is Weather Girl Shake. We haven't seen a Weather Girl for a really long time. She has Oracle. When this unit attacks the Vanguard, look at the top card of your deck and put it on top or bottom of your deck. If you put it on the bottom, she gets plus 2k. This is on GB1, so you can actually do that quite early onwards, so that's actually really impressive. Second skill is GB1. When your drive check reveals a grade 3 card, you can counter blast 1. If you do, draw a card, and she gets plus 2k until end of turn. So, regardless, she's gonna try to be at least an 11k attacker. Kind of okay. I think there's better options in the Oracle deck, but she's actually quite alright. Especially since the first skill is not on GB1, I think she's actually quite cool. Next is Weather Girl Lassie. Very similar skill, except on boost of an Oracle unit. You can look at the top card and put it on top or bottom, and if it's on bottom, she gets plus 2k. And then once per turn, GB1, when your drive check reveals a grade 3 card, you can counter charge 1, but only once per turn. So, also pretty good card. They both basically do the same thing, and they're all both quite solid. And the final Oracle card we have is Efficient Carp. Oracle, at the end of your turn, you can put him into your soul. If you do, look at the top card of your deck, put it on the top or bottom of your deck, and draw a card. He's alright, but I feel like, I don't know, I haven't seen him in I think I've seen him in a couple of my friends' Oracle decks, but overall not that much. But, it's an Oracle stand, might as well mention it. Now, before we go on to the next big hype of this set, we're going to look at the Tsukiyomi support really quick, because there's not much of it. And then we're going to go over the generics, and then obviously leave Battle Sisters for last. But the first of the Tsukiyomi support cards is Miko of the Morning Moon Haruzuki. When she is discarded from hand for the cost of Stride, if you have a card with Tsukiyomi on your Vanguard circle or in your soul, draw a card and choose one of your noble units, and until end of turn it gets plus 5k, and the skill that when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, you can choose a grade 3 card from your drop zone and return it to your hand. This basically lets you get a bunch of one, it refunds the cost for Stride, so you draw a card in exchange, and you give something plus 5k, and the skill that if it hits, you get your Stride fodder back, so you essentially plus 1 for no cost, and you get a 5k shield out of it. So she's good. We featured a Tsukiyomi list in the last Spotlight, and she was there as a 4 of, so she's quite important. The other Tsukiyomi support card is Miko of the Daybreak Moon Akizuki. Act once per turn on rearguard circle. Soul Blast 1 if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Tsukiyomi in its card name. Look at the top card of your deck, put it on the top or bottom of your deck, and this unit gets plus 2k until end of turn. So this time it doesn't matter where you put it, it just gets plus 2k. So You Soul Blast 1 into Tsukuyomi, I'm not sure how alright that is. I don't know, like how, I guess if you just kind of surplus soul charge, it's alright, but Tsukuyomi still depends on having quite a bit of soul to start running, so I'm not sure about that. But her other skill is in hand. You can discard her if you have a God Hawk Ichigoshi in your Vanguard circle. You can search your deck for a Goddess of the Crescent Moon Tsukuyomi, write it as stand and shuffle your deck. Essentially, that's her main role, which is to fix your misrides if you don't have the Tsukuyomi. So, pretty nice. You do have to discard her, but you know, you're going to be able to ride the Tsukuyomi and then look at the top 5 and restack it, which is very important. Okay, now let's quickly go over the generic cards that are not Oracle. First, we have Elite Heath. When this unit's on GB1, when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, you can retire him if you do draw 2 cards, and if the number of cards in your hand is 6 or more, countercharge 1, soul charge 1. Just a bit of on-hit pressure. It's literally just on-hit pressure. There's nothing more special about it. Then we have Protective Cat. When an attack hits a Vanguard during the battle, this unit boosted, you can retire him on GB1. If you do choose 2 of your units, then get +1k until end of turn for each card in your hand. This is actually kind of good. It's 6k power for grade 1, which is kind of sad, but it can, you know, it has to hit, but if it does, like, you can convert this into 2 pretty big columns, so it's really not that bad. And then we have Refined Prodigy Asahiko. Continuous, rearguard circle, all the other rearguards in the same column as this unit get resist, and then rearguard circle in the center column, GB1, count +1, put it into your soul, and draw a card. Basically every clan has one of these. I think OTT just didn't have it until now, so they had to print it. And that's it for the generic cards, so now we're finally moving on to everyone's favorite Battle Sisters. The first Battle Sister card we have is Excite Battle Sister Stolen. She has an axe once per turn, count +1, and Persona Flip. You may soul charge 1. Then look at the same number of cards from the top of your deck as the number of your rearguards with Battle Sister in their names, and put each of them on the top or bottom of your deck in any order. Basically, for the number of rearguards you have with Battle Sister in their names, you can look at that many cards from face up and then just restack them. You know, if you've got 5 triggers, then you're probably going to leave them on the top. And then her GB3 is a continuous. All your rearguards with Battle Sister in their card names get +3k, which is pretty good because, like, for nothing, even if you don't use the first skill, for whatever reason, she buffs up everything by 3k. And you already, like, a lot of Battle Sisters get buffs anyway, so you can make some really nice magic numbers with this. You tend to go into her as a first stride most of the time, I feel. And just for her first skill, like, you won't be able to do GB3 most of the time, but just her first skill is already pretty good. And then you might go into her again if it's not the right time for each Kishima, but it's almost always the right time for each Kishima, so yeah, that's basically what Battle Sisters are these days. Next we have the new and really good grade 3 Battle Sister Florentine. When you ride her, look at the top card of your deck and put it in the top or bottom of your deck. This works even if you like ride and then stride, you can still do that before you stride, so pretty important. Second skill is an on stride. When you stride, counterblast the Battle Sister. If you do look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 card from among them into your hand and the other one on the top or bottom. Choose one of your Vanguards, and until end of turn, it gets the skill that all your rearguards with Battle Sister in their card names get +3k. Really amazing card. One, it gives you cards in hand, lets you stack a card, and also buffs your Battle Sisters. So it doubles the effect of Stolen, so that's +6 to all your rearguards, and that's already a really strong start. So by far the most important grade 3. Most Battle Sister lists tend to run 4 of this one and 1 of the grade 3 from the last set. So they're both quite good, but this one is just like insanely good. Next we have the new Perfect Guard, Battle Sister Marmalade. When she's placed on Guardian Circle from hand, you can pay the cost for Perfect Guard, which is to discard a card, and you can PG any unit, not just your Vanguard. And then if you have a Battle Sister Marmalade in your drop zone and the number of cards in your hand is 3 or less, you may draw a card. So there is a condition which lets you draw a card. I think that's the new trend with PGs, because first we had countercharging PGs, then PGs that come back to your hand, and now we have PGs that, like, when you fulfill a certain condition mid-guard, you can draw a card. So, like, there was the Narukami one, now it's the OTT one, there's a Link Joker coming up, which is, like, I think 2 or more locked cards. So, or maybe 3 or more locked cards, but still, like, they all draw a card at the end. So, good Perfect Guard also can block anything, which is really important. So, overall, really good and pretty much a staple. Next, we have a new G-Guard, which is Excite Battle Sister Bavaroa. When you guard with her, you can count +1. If you do draw a card, reveal the top card of your deck, and if the revealed card is grade 1 or greater, this unit gets +5k until end of that battle. +5k shield, I should specify. You may put the revealed card on the bottom of your deck. You may, meaning you can actually keep it on the top if you want. That's more or less what the text says. This is pretty good. It's a 20k shield, does cost counterblast 1, but you get to draw a card and then, you know, possibly stack the top card as well if you see that it's a heal, but if it's a heal then you won't be getting that plus 5k. So really nice G-Guard. She's just a rare. Honestly, like most Battle Sisters list run this at like 2, I think, 1 or 2. At least from what I've seen. So it's quite solid. Amaterasu is still the best G-Guard for OTT, but this is also quite nice. Next we have Battle Sister Sabale. When you call her, if the number of units with Battle Sister in the card names is 3 or more, you Soul Blast the Battle Sister and you draw a card. It's basically like uncalled Soul Blast 1 draw a card, because you're almost always going to have enough units. Pretty nice because like you lose a card from hand to call her, but you get it back by just Soul Blasting 1, which technically does count as losing a card as well, but you know, it's an extra card in hand compared to a soul that you might not use for any other card in your deck, depending on what your build is. But she's very important. Like for early game, she's so good. She's not in GB1, so you could just get an extra card. Like really good card. Like without a doubt, a very good card. Next, Battle Sister's got a Stride Fodder, because why not? Her other skill is when you call it, you can reveal a grade 3 Battle Sister. If you do, you search for a grade 3 Battle Sister, put it into your hand, and then choose a card from your hand, discard, and shuffle your deck. It's like the same. It's literally just a Battle Sister Stride Fodder, which is like insane. It's actually wild. Next, we have a new starter, Battle Sister Kipfirl. You can put it to your soul in GB1, choose one of your Vanguards with Battle Sister in its card name, and give it the skill that all your Vanguards with Battle Sister in their names get plus 3k. Again, now it's plus 9k, essentially, but some people still use the old starter, that like top 3 to call a Battle Sister, which is, I think, is quite good too, because there's quite a few on-call skills, so I think it's, yeah, you can play whichever. It depends on what your build is looking like, but this one's also quite good. And the final card for Battle Sisters and for OTT and for this whole set is Battle Sister Ganache, which is just your draw trigger that goes into Soul to give something plus 3k. So that was it for OTT, which is arguably the strongest clan coming out of this set. I guess together with Gear Chronicle and Shadow Paladin, but like it's the way that OTT went from tier 3704 to like tier god tier 1, tier 0 basically, is quite amazing. Like I've played against Battle Sisters a lot while I've been here in Japan. Like the deck's very popular, and so it's quite tricky to play against. You have to be very careful with your guarding, or you're just gonna die to Ichikishima, because no matter what OTT deck it is, you can expect to see Ichikishima eventually. I know some people aren't happy with how they designed Ichikishima, but honestly, like OTT has been dead for so many years, I really don't mind, and it's not that unfair as people think, because like if the OTT player like messes up their timing, like if they do Ichikishima while you're on 3 damage, unless they sack a bunch of crits, you're probably gonna be fine. It's overall like it's a scary card when you're on 4 or 5, obviously, like you have to have a lot of PGs, but also you can adapt your deck, and if your clan has the self-returning PGs like Esras and the Seawall Banshee, I think she's called, and like Arca, those types of cards, then you're usually going to be fine, because you can keep returning your PGs and then just PG the Ichikishima turn a lot. So overall, it just requires people to adapt. I wouldn't say it's super unfair. I think it's like the design is questionable, but I think it's overall fine. But I know there's people that disagree. So that's going to be it for this segment, as well as this set breakdown. Do let me know what you guys are most excited about from this set, and what you think of the new support overall. So that's going to be it for me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.